Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 818 of the podcast, and it is Saturday 5th of July 2025 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to Ines Johnson about how she found her lane for writing and how finding success is a lot about deciding what your goals are, as well as writing with pen names, selling in KU for some books and going wide for others, how selling direct can give you more options on what you offer readers, plus page-turner planning, lessons from doing a Kickstarter, book marketing tips, and all the fun you can have in Romancelandia. So that's coming up in the interview section. In Writing and Publishing Things, Becca Syme talks about the 5 phases of an author career. And definitely have a listen to this or watch the YouTube video because I think it would help a lot of people who think they're just going to write a book and hit the big time straight away. So just a reality check on how long it takes in general. And I think this is important to consider in any job, in any industry. How valuable are you in year 1 of any new career? How valuable are you in year 5? But by year 10, you might be in a better place. So back to Becca's article and video. The 5 phases are phase 1, research and development, where you're really learning to write as well as testing and finding readers, figuring out what you are writing. And this is really good to remember because I remember this, and this happens to pretty much all new authors. You don't know what you're writing. You're just like, oh, I'm writing a book. And then you have to kind of figure out what that is. Don't worry, that's normal. You will also most likely be out of pocket in phase 1. You are like most pre-launch businesses. It is slow going. But there's also this wonderful time. There's no pressure. No one knows who you are. There's no readers clamoring for the next book. So make the most of it. Phase 2, initial growth, is when some money starts to come in and people are reading your books. But you have to prioritise writing amidst increasing marketing demands, which can be difficult. Some decisions may not yield results, and you need to focus on building your community, your author network, so you have support as you continue to write and grow. So in phase 3, which Becca calls infrastructure building, you're writing and marketing and trying to keep up, and sometimes your profit will go down because you start to pay others to do work. You outsource more, you pay for more tools, and you probably experience some reader or audience frustration. When's the next book coming? Why can't you speak at this thing and this thing and this thing? So there's more responsibility. You probably have to start saying no more after saying yes for so long. You also need to learn delegation. Phase 4 is a growth of investment. So your business is probably changing, growing fast and dealing with those challenges, and you need to prioritise self-care. And phase 5 is a mature business where revenue and profit stabilise. And Becca says flatlining is a positive sign in a mature business. Now, I actually really appreciated hearing this because there is always this sort of focus on growth. But I think we're actually at a time in history, at least in the West, where we are questioning growth at any cost. And that is on a country basis, but it's also on an individual business basis. There is no need to keep going. Often when you start out, you think you have a particular goal and then maybe you reach a different level and you're like, do you know what? I'm actually really happy here. And this is kind of where I am. I have a mature business. I have been stable and mature for around a decade, which is kind of crazy. And Becca says, at this stage, authors typically either reinvent themselves, a new pen name, a series or genre, or perhaps a new business, or they downsize and find contentment with established success. So this is, I think, really interesting and worth looking at depending on wherever you are. It's good to look at this and recognise where you are in those phases and what are the good things about the phase and what are the challenges about the phase. That Becca has seen many thousands of authors along years of coaching and can sort of see these patterns. It's one of her gifts, I think, or skills in seeing these kind of patterns amongst the industry. And so, yeah, I found this really useful to sort of say, okay, well, I am still doing a slow sort of reinvention, slow pivot, and more on this as the year progresses, because I do have more changes ahead. But Becca says there are certain tactics that don't belong in early phases of your author business. So audiobooks are not an investment if you don't know that you have a book that meets customer demand. Translations, not necessarily a thing. Direct sales, not necessarily a thing. Kickstarter, not necessarily a thing. There's a level of knowledge you need to have, testing you need to do, a certain level of audience and number of books to know if you're going to be able to meet that. So again, a really good sort of sense check. Where are you and what is the type of thing you should be doing for where your business is? Also, I think it's a good reminder that there are two different sides of what we do. So, for example, I started my first business back in the year 2000. So I've been running businesses, and I've run several different businesses in several different industries. I had a scuba diving business, I've done property investment, I ran my own consultancy before I became an author, podcaster, entrepreneur type. So my business skills were really well developed when I started writing. And so I was better at business than I was at writing. And so I spent years, and still, obviously, I'm spending time investing in my writing craft. And there are people who've been writing books for many years who are incredible in the writing craft, but have no experience running a business and might say, oh, I'm just going to self-publish and just see what happens. But they have to learn business. So this is important too. How many years experience do you have with the writing craft? And how many years experience do you have in business? And those two things are probably not exactly the same. I guess I should also say that even before my own business, I spent years working in other people's businesses. So I have more of a business background, which is why when I came into publishing, I was clearly going to run it as a business. So yes, please have a look at Becca's Quitcast. You can find it on the podcast app you're listening to this, or on YouTube. It's also good to remember that we can learn from different people. So I wanted to mention Ryan Holiday's blog post on lessons from writing every day for 2 decades. I don't think you could possibly get, well, no, there are lots of very different people, but Becca Syme and Ryan Holiday are really very different people. I love his book, Perennial Seller, which is about writing something that lasts. And also he's been on this show twice over the years. He has his podcast, The Daily Stoic, and I think a lot of what he does is really interesting. Anyway, Ryan has this great article and just a couple of things. He says, don't get caught up trying to please everyone all the time. No one who has ever created anything has escaped criticism. It's inevitable that some percentage of people will not like what you do. You'll drive yourself crazy if you think you're somehow the exception to this. Stay true to your work and who you are. So I thought that was great. I definitely am a people pleaser. I like people to like me. But obviously, as Ryan says here, you're going to drive yourself crazy if you're trying to do that all the time. So yeah, I gave up on that a few years ago. I think midlife helps. You're just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to do what I do. And you can stick around. This is what I love about podcasting. I'm here on my own in my audio booth. You'll be listening at some point. I mean, obviously you are listening to this because you're hearing my voice, but lots of other people will not be listening. Most people in the world will not be listening, but you've chosen to listen, and you have chosen. So there's no forcing yourself into people's life as a podcaster. You just kind of offer yourself up, and people can either listen or not. And I just love that. I think that really helps. So yeah, just offer people what you want to create, and some people will like it. A lot of people won't. Also, Ryan says, I accidentally stumbled into a process that protected me from disappointment and ego. I was too focused on the next thing to get caught up in good or bad news. Now I always try to start the next project before the last one launches, even arranging my schedule so I'm working the day sales numbers come in to avoid getting caught up in the ups and downs of launch. Yeah, I totally agree with this. The best book is always the next one. I think that's just a creator attitude. We're always interested in creating more because we love creating. And once it's out in the world, it's kind of out of your brain and you can think about the next one. Also, he does talk about exercise, which I think is so important. I can't tell you how many times I've thought of a great line or solved an intractable writing problem while running or swimming. Exercise is an easy win every day. Writing can go poorly, but going on a run always goes well. And I will substitute walking or weightlifting instead of running and swimming. So whatever it is, movement is the one thing I do not skip every day, unless obviously I'm sick and in bed. But I do not skip movement, and whereas I definitely do not write every day, I do read every day. So I read and I move. Those two things, that's a win. Also, finally, just a point on marketing, Ryan says, nothing is so good that it just finds its audience. You have to bring it to them. As literary agent Bird Leavell puts to his clients, you know what happens if your book gets published and you don't have any way of getting attention for it? No one buys it. Plenty of artists can make great work. Not everyone has the dedication to make great work and market it. Marketing is where you distinguish yourself and beat out the talent whose entitlement or laziness holds them back. Ooh, a bit of tough love there from Ryan, but of course his background is in marketing. So he says, again, marketing is where you distinguish yourself and beat out the talent whose entitlement or laziness holds them back. Yes, so if you think you don't need to do any marketing, well, think again. So that article is on ryanholiday.net, and yeah, great post from Ryan. So in AI things, if you remember last week, I talked about 2 US court cases where training AI models on copyright data was considered fair use in cases against Meta and Anthropic, who make Claude. And Orna Ross on the Self-Publishing with Ally podcast has an episode all about this, which I definitely think you should have a listen to, called What the First AI Copyright Ruling Means for Authors. And as with anything Orna does, it is well thought out, clear, and a useful middle way with no catastrophizing either way. It goes into what the rulings mean for authors, how the Alliance of Independent Authors ethical guidelines play into it, elements of fair use, a realistic view on what might constitute settlement at some point, and why Ally is advocating for consent, compensation, clarity, and also curiosity. So please go and have a listen to that. Just search for Self-Publishing with Ally, ALLI, on your podcast app, or link in the show notes to the transcript on selfpublishingadvice.org. Now, in personal news, well, I had a really great book research trip / artist's date to Lichfield Cathedral this week. So it is a Gothic cathedral. It was first consecrated in 700 AD and rebuilt in the Gothic style around 1340. My pictures and an article are up at booksandtravel.page, which is really where I blog now. There were 2 things that surprised me. So one was an actual relic of Saint Chad, a 7th century saint, and regular listeners will know of my fascination with body parts in jars, whether that is anatomy museums or religious relics, Catholic religious relics. Now, it's very unusual to find an actual relic in an Anglican church. If you know anything about the history of Christianity, Protestantism versus Catholicism, etc. So it is very unusual. So I was like, wow, that is cool. Also, they had this wonderful Fenland black oak table, 13 metres long, made of this ancient oak that was alive when Stonehenge was being built 5,000 years ago. So this tree was alive thousands of years before Christ. And I just had this real sense of deep time being with this table, and you can touch it and everything. And it was so interesting being this tiny speck on the face of history in this ancient church with this ancient wood, and basically this wood had fallen into a peat bog which had preserved it. And I love this feeling of insignificance. I do talk about it a lot, I guess a lot more on my JF Penn side of things and on my Books and Travel podcast, but I often feel it in cathedrals and in nature. So I think that is why I just had a real visceral sense of it with this wood. It was surprisingly moving. I can't justify it really in words by saying it was a wooden table. I mean, it just, yeah, it was really interesting feeling and this sensation of the atmosphere of this ancient place. And the photos are on booksandtravel.page, and there's a link to it. There's a lot of stuff online about this Fenland Black Oak project. And actually coming back really helped me get into the final short story for my collection, which is set at the Black Church in Iceland. And I've been trying to settle on what the story would be really since we got back. And I woke up at the Black Church on my 50th birthday. And it is out on the Skafellsnes Peninsula by these ancient glaciers and a dormant volcano that Jules Verne used as a way in for the journey to the centre of the earth. And in the story, which I read again this week, because I was like, I'm going to read it again and see if it also helps. And this visit to Lichfield brought back the idea of deep time. And actually in that story, if you haven't read it, I mean, obviously these older works of literature, I mean, although this is definitely pulp fiction, this is an early action-adventure story. Jules Verne wrote loads of them, and he does reflect on deep time. The main character is a geologist, and they go down and he sees the geology of the earth and different creatures and all this different thing. So I read the story again and realised that it is also about deep time. And so that helped me write the draft of the story. So the draft is done. That's what I also did this week. And because the church, the Black Church, and there are, again, pictures on my blog at booksandtravel.page, this church is in the middle of nowhere, and it's on this ancient lava plain at the foot of the glaciers, and very much deep time, this human structure standing against massive nature. And so that theme of deep time now echoes in the draft of the story, which I'm just resting for a few days just to come back to it with fresh eyes next week, and I'll edit it and get it over to Kristen, and then I will be putting together the collection. The pre-launch page is up for The Buried and the Drowned, and it is up at jfpenn.com/buried, and you'll see the cover there. And of course, this Black Church story is a buried story. I shall say no more. So also, on a personal note, if you'd like to try any of my fiction, all my ebooks and audiobooks and digital bundles are 50% off for July. Just go to jfpennbooks.com, use July 25 at checkout, and there's a direct link in the show notes. So jfpennbooks.com, July 25, all caps. So thanks for your emails and comments and photos this week. Sunny said on Simon's 11 Labs interview, a very timely episode, thank you. I've played around with 11 Labs, it's amazing, and was about to start making my first audiobook, but now I'll wait for version 3. It's definitely being rolled out, Sunny. Interesting to hear that Abby makes enough with her cloned voice to replace her full-time income. Like you, as in, like me, I'm struggling a bit with the moral dilemma of my voice being used for anything, but it might be a lucrative alternative stream of income if the appetite for Afrikaans English accents ever grows. And I love that because I personally love an Afrikaans accent, and I think that the more varied accents we have available as licensed voices, the more we can do different cool characters. So, for example, although my character is male, I do have an Afrikaans English character, Jake Timber, in my Arcane series. So he's a main character, and that series has been narrated by a female American voice, although because I started doing audiobooks such a long time ago and American voices were far more common, now I would actually love to try, I could actually do this because I've got all my rights back to my audio, but I could do a sort of dual version with British English female and Afrikaans English male. So I think if you have a different accent English, then yeah, definitely have a look at that. I think those voices will be in growing demand. Also, Diana says, listening from Sandhamn in the Stockholm archipelago, Sweden, came across this tombstone I thought you might enjoy. A sea captain born in the cove, dead at sea, and a memorial amongst the trees. Lovely. And Janet sent a picture listening from a bothy in Norway. Beautiful picture out to the misty trees. And that looks like a very nice bothy, Janet. Okay, so please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or you can email me. Send me pictures of where you're listening or your favourite church or cemetery or Gothic cathedral. Joanna at thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. So today's show is sponsored by Atticus, which helps you write and format stunning books in both ebook and print. It works across all platforms, so you can use it whatever computer you work on, Mac or PC. It is safe and secure. You own your data, and it is also backed up to the cloud, so you don't need to worry about losing anything. There are other kinds of software that do things separately, but Atticus has everything in one place, so you can streamline your process. You can write your book in the editor built for authors with the ability to drag and drop chapters, manage your book goals and writing habit tracking, word count, and all the usual writing elements. You can also collaborate with others, a co-author, editor, or an ARC reader if you want comments on the book. You can then use Atticus to format your book or import an existing book to format. There are lots of different templates, so you can choose the look and feel or use the custom theme builder, and then you can preview your book on a variety of devices so you can see what it will look like. Your export will work with any book market and platform, so you can get your book out into the world. Happy authors who use it say it is the one app to rule them all and easy to use for new writers. It's a one-time payment and you get 30 days money-back guarantee, and you can start writing and formatting your book straight away. Check it out now at atticus.io. That's atticus.io. So this type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing, but my time in creating the show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 9 new patrons who've joined in the last week, and thanks to everyone who's been supporting for months and years. And I also appreciate those people who pop in for a month or two and then go again, because obviously it's not a forever subscription if you don't want it to be, and every little helps. If you join the community, you get access to all my backlist videos and audio covering writing craft and author business, as well as demos and tutorials on AI. Last week we did a mid-year check-in for our creative goals, and I have an article coming on French translation and the tools and companies I used for that, and how to adapt your covers with AI tools if you already have one in English. The Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. So if you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Right, let's get into the interview. Ines Johnson is a romance author with over 100 books spanning paranormal, urban fantasy, contemporary and erotica, as well as sweet romance under another pen name. So welcome to the show, Ines.
Hi, Jo. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh no, I'm excited to talk to you today. First up, tell us a bit more about you and how you got into writing and publishing.
I'm going to give you my answer to my 3 lies and a truth, so you will always be able to win against me. I grew up in a funk band. That's always my truth. I grew up in a funk band, and my father was the bass player, and one of my formative memories was of him explaining to me music composition and how the keyboard had its part and it would tell a story, and the drums had a part and it would tell a story, and then finally the vocalist came on and they told a different story, and how all of these work together to make the story complete, to be the characters. And it was from that moment, I just knew I'm supposed to be in storytelling. I thought I was going to be a singer. My daddy said, "Oh, sweetie, no, you're not going to be a singer." So I went first through television, and then I found my way into novel writing. So I worked in cable television for a number of years. I worked for National Geographic Television. If you remember, they had the Explorer show, which was before they had a channel. Loved that. It met so many fascinating people from all around the world. And then I started to work in children's television. But while I was working in children's television, I've always been a reader. I'm an avid reader since I was super young. There's pictures of my youngest aunt corralling me and my cousins in a line off the city bus, walking into the library. And that was just the best thing ever, us going to the library and being able to take books home. But my godmother, who lived a few blocks up the street from us, in her pantry, where they're supposed to keep boxes of pasta and cans of like beans, she didn't have that in there. Instead, she had all these teeny tiny little Harlequins. Do you remember like the Harlequin presents and the silhouettes? And that was my second library. And she said I could take whatever I wanted to and read. And I did. And she didn't try to censor me, because back then it was like the waves would crash in the love scene. So I didn't know what that meant.
The fountain would erupt.
Oh my God. Yes, that kind of stuff where we didn't know exactly what was happening. We just knew there was a lot of water in romance. But I read those books and it became an absolute addiction for me. And it stayed with me. Even when I was working in television, when I went on to work in children's television, I was reading Twilight in between the scripts where these little kids were playing on a farm as part of the television show. And the bug bit me. I would be writing screenplays and then I would change the software over to like Final Draft, and from Final Draft to like Word or eventually Scrivener. And I'd work on a novel. It took me years for that first novel to be recognizable as a piece of literature. It has not seen the light of day, but that was fine, because after the first one, I wrote the next one in I think a year, and then the next one in maybe 6 months, the next one in 3 months, and then the next. Now I'm like a whole lot faster than that. But I always like to preface my air quotes speed with the fact that I'm a trained screenwriter. So 13 scripts per season, 2 seasons per year, that's normal pace for me. So my brain doesn't think, oh, it's supposed to take a year or more to write a novel. No, you need to have this full script, this part of the story done in however much time that I had.
Well, that is really interesting. I think people who come from screenwriting, people who come from journalism are fast writers, because they're like, yeah, I have a deadline. This is a job and I do the stuff and there's the words. And so, yeah, I get that. So when did you first self-publish? When did you decide to do that?
December 2014, I published my first serialized book. It was a 3-part serial. Back then, at that time, it was really popular to do serial books. And this was like in the era of KU 1.0, where you got paid dollars no matter how long or short the book was. Remember those days? So short-lived, I think that was. Very, very short-lived for these short books. But it worked for me because that's how my mind is. I don't think in feature film. I think in episodes. So that really, really worked for me. And so I started to write these shorter stories, and they did well. And then I just wrote more and more. At that time, I only write romance, but I didn't understand genres at that time. I didn't really understand tropes. It means something different in the media world. So I started writing like a dystopian, and then I wrote a sci-fi, and then I wrote a paranormal, and I was just going all over the place. And each time I was building a new audience. They wouldn't follow. Like the people that read the dystopian, they were not interested in the contemporary. The people that read the contemporary, they were not interested in that paranormal. And it didn't make sense to me until, this is the beautiful thing about Romancelandia and the authors that live here. If we see somebody who's trying their hardest and doing some good, and they're making not the best decisions, they could be making better decisions, they will pull you up by your bra straps and say, girlfriend, let me give you some advice. And that's what happened to me. I had authors say, it's fantastic that you keep finding an audience, but you really want to try to retain them. And one of the ways to retain them is to pick a lane and stay in it. So I did get that pick a lane and stay in it advice. But it was more about the subgenres. And I was just crisscrossing too many lanes on the highway to keep my readers. So that's when I decided pen names were for me, because I didn't want to limit myself. So I just made more than one pen name.
Yeah, I must say this is something I've always done, writing all over the shop, and I have 2 main pen names. For my fiction, I know that people don't cross over. And it's so weird, isn't it? Because I think many writers, I certainly read so many different genres, right? Yes. So I don't really understand people who only read one genre. But then I say that my husband, for fiction, he only reads epic fantasy. And that is it, and he's very clear about what counts. as well. So I do get it. But I guess, how have the pen names worked for you? If people are listening and they're like, well, I don't want to stay in one lane forever. Is it that, like, write 5 books under one pen name and then change? How do you keep multiple names going?
Well, let me make sure that for the folks that are listening, that you understand this. I think of the vast majority of readers probably will read like a handful of books a year. I don't think that indies are focused on the masses like that. We're very focused on the whale readers, the ones that read a book a day. I'm a whale reader. I read 1 to 2 books a day. Those people, they will often want one specific thing, and maybe one specific thing for a period of time. Like, I'm right now in a contemporary mood. I just want to read some smutty contemporary. And then probably next week I'll be in a historical mood. And then after that, I might be in a sci-fi mood. A lot of these whale readers are often mood readers. So you don't necessarily have to pick a lane and stay in it. However, if you want a faster route to profitability, this is a strategy that works. This is just a strategy, and it's a strategy that works. If you're looking at profitability, if you are an artiste with that little accent over the I, then you don't have to listen to this advice. You do not have to listen to this advice. You have to determine what it is that you want out of your career. And really, that's the lane that you need to pick in. And if inside that lane, it says you have to be a very focused genre writer, and this specific genre stay in this particular narrow lane, then you do that because that's your goal. If you are a different kind of writer and you want to write across various spectrums, then you just need to set your goals accordingly, find the right readers, and then stay in that beautiful, let's not call it a lane, let's call it a highway. You're on a highway.
Yeah, I do feel like the expectations often don't match up with what most newer writers, perhaps, or even more established writers, they think that you can maybe still write one novel and make a living, or these other things. So apart from the focus, I guess if your goal is to make money, then focus on your highway. But what are the other mistakes that either you've made yourself or that you see others make? Because we're all saying, girlfriend, give us some advice.
So that's the main mistake that I see, is because one person's mistake can be another person's boon. And I really feel that if you understand who you are and what you want, what your goals are, then I feel like you make less mistakes, and you really don't make any mistakes, and they just become opportunities. Because for me, like, you are not going to see me talking about politics in my books. I'm trying to escape it as much as I possibly can when I'm going to the page to write, when I'm going to the page to read. So you're not going to see that. But then I see other authors who embrace it wholeheartedly, and the readers love them for it. Or I see authors who post very personal things on social media. I am not that girl. I keep a lot of things close to my chest. I'm very bubbly. I'm very fun. You will feel like you know me, but you couldn't tell a lot of actual facts about me after you walk away from a conversation with me. And I don't suffer from that because I know what my limits are. And then other authors, that's some of them, that's a mistake for them because they go too far. And unfortunately, humanity, we love a rise as much as we love a fall. So I really think it becomes about understanding who you are and understanding what you want, because this industry changes so fast, you will get whiplash. And the thing that stays the same is you and your goals and why you're doing this. And if you can keep that close to your chest, I think, again, that any potential mistake becomes an opportunity that you can really see and dig deep and understand how to make the best of it.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned when you started, you were in KU, but I think now you're selling direct as well as publishing wide. So a lot of people think that, oh, well, all romance authors, they're just KU authors. So tell us about selling direct, selling wide. What do you do, and what is some of your tips and lessons?
So I started KU because I didn't understand how to upload to the other retailers. And then eventually I learned. But I'm always looking at what's my goal. And my pen names have different goals. So my Ines pen names mostly writes paranormal and fantasy. That's what she does. My Ines Johnson pen name is clean, wholesome romance. That's her lane. She sticks to it. Those are my two main pen names. So what I understand is that Shanae can be wide, because if you look on Barnes and Noble, if you look on Apple Books or Google Play, you can see that contemporary Western, contemporary military, contemporary small town, like that, let's call it universal. Like you will see that if you go to those platforms. But if you are looking at romantasy, if you are looking at paranormal romance, if you're looking at paranormal women's fiction, if you're looking at reverse harem, those were born on Amazon. Those specific categories were born there. So I'm always watching not only what is the industry doing, but what are the readers doing and where are the readers? So Shanae could go into KU with her clean and wholesome romance, but why when there's readers everywhere? Ines could come out of KU and do other things, but why when the readers are concentrated right there? So those are my reasons for doing that. And yes, I am selling direct. And all of so print direct sales, I sell more in print direct than I do on Amazon, and the margins are better for me there. So that's another thing to think about with direct. Nobody has an exclusive right to your print book unless you give it away. But the other thing to think about when you're selling direct is how are you different? Then let's call Amazon the king, because right now Amazon is where everybody's looking at. Amazon is everybody's boo. That's their boyfriend, right? But Amazon can't do everything. Amazon can't sell you the ebook, the audiobook, the print book, the special edition. Maybe you have some swag pack. So another Kickstarter that I did was a fiction Kickstarter where I was selling a spicy romance, and I sold the ebook, the print book, the audiobook, and I also sold a webinar, because inside the book, there were some spicy times that dealt with rope and shibari. And so I got a shibari expert to come on and give my readers, so they all got some rope and they all got a special demonstration from this shibari expert. I can't do that on Amazon. So you're right. So you're thinking about, well, what can direct do that your boo Amazon can't? And you can give a completely different experience. You can have tea parties with your readers, and I bet they would love that. You can build a book box with all kinds of amazing goodies. I had a friend that actually made her readers. She's really crafty, and she made them objects. You can't do that on Amazon with the book. So that's what you want to be thinking about. Direct is an experience. It's bundles. That's something that it's hard to do on Amazon. And it's an experience that you can give your readers.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Because I think people can get stuck in just it's still ebooks in KU, but that might have been correct in 2014 when you started. But as you say, a lot of people are doing a lot more now. And also you can charge a lot more for that book box and all the stuff and the webinar. And it's great that you're doing that for fiction as well, because I think people think, you can only charge the extra for non-fiction.
You have to think, literally, pun intended, think outside of the box. Do you remember Jeff Bezos said one day Amazon will be disrupted?
I think it already is disrupted. Like it's a tech company now rather than just a store.
But even aside from being a tech company, we see that readers are interested in these beautiful books. And Amazon can't produce these beautiful books. You're going to have to get a vendor account if you want to sell your beautiful hardbacks, special editions with the sprayed edges and all the interior artwork that you have. You're going to have to get a vendor license to do that. And so that's one of the ways that Amazon is being disrupted. They can't do this. They can't do it wholesale the way that this is just sweeping the reader nation. They can't keep up with this. So I think everybody should even just be looking into what can you do with your print books.
Yeah, and we can do so much. It's really... So you mentioned Kickstarter then, and I got your Page Turner Pacing Kickstarter.
Thank you, Joanna.
I know, which was great. And we all love Kickstarter. It's really helping us do these interesting things. And you've got a campaign coming on Page Turner Planning. I want to hear about that because I feel like planning is something that a lot of authors want to know more about. So tell us about that, and also how you're running the Kickstarter, tips for people who want to do that.
You know how I said you really have to know yourself, and I know who I am, I know my why, I know my lane. My superpower, my number one strength on the Clifton Strengths chart is discipline. I like doing the same thing over and over again. But my number two strength is achiever. I have to achieve, I have to evolve, I have to win something new, which is For the longest time, those two just clashed against each other until I sat down and talked to Becca Simon. She explained myself to me. So yes, I'm a planner. I like to, every day I get up, I have a number of journals. I won't tell you how many, but every day I get up and I record my data. It takes, so even today, like when I first started to today, it costs me about $2,500 to $3,000 a month just to cover my living expenses and live comfortably. That hasn't changed. Well, it changed from 25 to 3,000. But so that's about $80 a day. So I sit down in my little journal and I go through and I check the dashboards to see how much I've earned. And I write the numbers down. I'm not just writing it down from Amazon because I am wise. So I write all the numbers down. I don't put it in a spreadsheet. I just write them down. And that calms my mind. It reminds me, yeah, you can do this self-employed thing. You can do this small business thing. You are fine. You have made the money to cover your expenses. You're good. Now go have fun. And that's when my muse basically starts to write the book after that. And so people, when I'm on retreats, when I'm out and about, people look over my shoulder and they start asking me about my planners because I record that. I record my word count. I record what I'm doing, like what's going on in the story. I have tons of different journals to record all this information. And it always baffles me that people are like, how can you do that? I don't understand. It's really anti-anxiety for me. But 2 years ago, I had wanted to, because I had done this successfully, not one, but two pen names. So I said, I think I can teach somebody how to do this. I came from 15 years of teaching and then I stopped. And then I only wanted to talk to authors. I didn't want to talk to other people in academia. I just wanted to talk to authors. And I was like, I think I can teach you how to do this. So I started a little mastermind where I was showing people how to write with, like I said, with the page turner pacing. I showed them how to do that. But I didn't want to just leave them at writing the book. I was like, okay, well, this is how I market it. Well, this is the things that I started to do before the book was even out. So this is all the prep work that I did. This is how I set up my Instagram. This is how I set up my website. This is how I set up my newsletter. I also knew that I needed to go into the bank because this wasn't going to be a hobby. So I knew I needed to go in and get a DBA. Then that became an LLC. And then that became maybe an S corp. So because I do have a couple of degrees in education, I figured out how to deliver the information in bite-sized chunks in a really good sequence that made logical sense. So I've been giving this information out, and I would talk to them once a week. This is what you should be thinking about in your writing. Not necessarily write this particular chapter, but have you thought about your characters and your subplots? Have you introduced these things that I call heartbeat moments, where it can be a really great moment on TikTok that you pull and you put on your Instagram, or you use in a Facebook ad? Are you thinking about that? How's your business going this week? Are you getting your expenses together, ready for taxes? How's your branding? Are you pulling from content buckets and are you publishing them on Instagram and TikTok? And so I look back as I was supposed to be writing Page Turner Tension, which is the second book in my Page Turner series. I look back at all this content and I said, this is a book. I had more than 52 weeks worth of content. So that's what I did. I turned that 2-year-long experiment of weekly helping people to write their book, to make sure their business was sturdy and on a good foundation, of making sure they knew how to brand and market themselves. And I turned it into a planner. And that's Page Turner Planning.
I love that. I mean, well, first of all, it's very interesting that you have discipline and achiever in your top 5. That explains a lot, because I do think, though, I mean, it was Sasha Black who got me into Clifton Strengths, and I now use it all the time. But my discipline is way down. Like, people think I'm disciplined, and I am not. But I have achiever at 6. So I think that's the driver for me. But it's really... Great. It's so interesting that I love also writing down these numbers, because I think that is something that people avoid. Now, I don't do that anymore. What I do is log into my accounting software. So I don't write it elsewhere, but I see it in my accounting software. And I check that pretty much every weekday. I check my accounting software and I get feeds from the bank every day and PayPal and all of this. So I do monitor that. And I wonder, for people just starting out, what you mentioned there in your page turning planner was quite a lot of things. You were like, all this stuff. So if people are like, oh my goodness, well, I can't possibly be like Ines, I can't do all of that. is there like a simple way to get started with this planner? It doesn't have to be all the things all the time.
It is not all the it's not all the things all the time. So I want so that you're comfortable with me, listeners. I have 2 degrees in education, and I taught art. I taught at an art college for 15 years, so I know how to handle an artist, a creative who I need to educate and I need to evaluate. I got you. So it truly is in small pieces that build, and you don't realize that you're building. And again, I'm used to working with artists and they always want to look ahead if you want. But I promise you that I'm building slowly, and I'm always building you towards something. So you can also go and look on my Substack, and you'll see tons of this information there. I've just organized it in this planner where we start from Q1, week 1. I'm giving you a couple of tasks that should not take you the whole week, but you have the whole week if you want it. And then in week 2, we build on that. In week 3, we build on that. Slow and steady. That's what wins the race. Slow and steady and structured. That's what wins this race.
No, I love that. I think that's really useful. So if we go into the more Kickstarter, how does a Kickstarter work? So right now, I think as this goes out, pre-launch page is up. So why is that important for people who want to fund their Kickstarter? Why do that pre-launch page?
Because these people don't necessarily know you. I don't know what the statistic is, but Kickstarter basically says you're going to pull some people from your audience, but you're going to pull a lot of new people to you. And these new people don't know you. So you have to introduce yourself. You have to build trust. I'm asking you for money from something that came from my brain. And it could be a story, or it could be this product that can benefit you. So in this instance, it's a product that will benefit you. But you don't know, I could be making all this stuff up. So I think the pre-launch page is to give you sneak peeks. It's to build trust. And once you have those things, then I think people are more likely to come on board and give you a try.
And I think it's also because the campaigns are reasonably short, and so people, I mean, I still have people say, oh, well, I didn't hear about your campaign when you were running it. And I'm like, well, I thought I was being very noisy, but you know, some people miss it. So it gives you a bit more of a run up, doesn't it? But what other things did you learn from your Kickstarters that might help other people? Like any mistakes, or definitely do this?
So the first thing is fear, because I was terrified to run. I remember you saying that you were terrified.
Yeah, I was terrified.
Do your first Kickstarter, because I think both of us are introverts, and we can have this great chat that will be put out in public, but we are both really people that probably like to sit in our houses and be quiet and write our books. So that's me. I don't like to put my business out there. And when you do something like Kickstarter, you're putting your business out there. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see if it succeeds or if it fails. And my very first Kickstarter I did with Ines Johnson, my sweet pen name, and she has a huge audience. I got 30 backers. I limped my way. It might have not have even been 30. I limped my way to funding that Kickstarter, and I was just all kinds of confused. I didn't understand it. So I was very hesitant to do a second Kickstarter. So very hesitant. I was thinking, everybody's going to think I'm afraid. Even though Sinead continued to make money, even though after that Kickstarter was over, the readers were like, hey, do you have any more of those books? Can we just get them from you directly? And that's when I sold out. I was like, where were you? You did not show up for me, which is a fear of mine, that people won't show up for me. So I really had to do a lot of mindset work when I did my first non-Kickstarter, the Page Turner Pacing Kickstarter. But even before that, like talking about it before it launched, that was the best thing that I did. Because again, these people didn't know me. They didn't know if I was telling them the truth. I had to show you that I knew what I was talking about first. And once people saw that I knew what I was talking about, and I was giving them tidbits of, this could work for you. Here, take this information for free and try it, and then come back and have a conversation with me. That's what worked. Having tiers where they could just kind of try something out and see, because they didn't. Over 700 people backed that Kickstarter. Joanna, I'm still breathless over it. I don't know 700. I don't think I've met 700 people in my life. So I had to have a moment to convince them, or maybe I convinced their friends that I know what I'm talking about, one, but I can help you. And I'm really here to help you. Whenever I open my mouth to tell somebody what I know, I'm not expecting to get anything in return. I just like explaining the things that I know because it makes me feel good. Like, because I think to myself, you really know what you're talking about. Good job, you. I do this. I do this stuff.
And you're a teacher. I mean, like you said, you've got 2 degrees in teaching and all those years of experience. So, I mean, I think that makes a real difference that you obviously like teaching as well.
I do.
I think that's really important. But I do want to ask you, because like you've mentioned Substack, you've mentioned Instagram, but I noticed that you put your YouTube on a hiatus.
Yeah.
So I wondered, in terms of book marketing, people are always asking what should be done. Now, what have you kept doing since 2014 and what have you changed up as things have shifted?
So it's so fascinating. I fascinate myself. I'm constantly studying me. I'm like, wow, why did you do that? And so I get these bursts of energy where I figure something out and I just want to tell everybody because I truly want us all to win. So when you do see me with my face showing up on Instagram or TikTok, I figured something out and I want to show everybody. But then once I've told you, then I go away again. But I'm always writing. You will not find me without a piece of paper and a pen somewhere on my person. So things like Substack really work for me because I have so much to write about on the nonfiction side as well as the fiction side. So that just works for me. But when it comes in terms of marketing, I really rely again on what I learned in my television and screenwriting days. And the best marketing advice that I can give, other than my number one thing, is to find one new reader every single day. And I might find them using an AMS ad or a Facebook ad. I might find them with an Instagram post or a TikTok. I might go out to a book signing at a local Barnes and Noble, and I might find them that way. Every day, I'm looking for just one new reader. This is every day I go and I track my income. Every day, I'm looking for one new reader. So that's it to a nutshell. But if I try to distill what I learned in my time in television, we have this formula called AIDA, AIDA. A stands for attention, I for interest, D for desire, and A for action. That's really what marketing is to me. How are you going to get these people's attention? And in the AIDA formula, which I think I've written about on my Substack, you can go look at it. InesWrites.substack.com, which you can go and look for AIDA, AIDA. And there's a list of things that we learned how to do in the School of Communications to get people's attention. It might be a startling statement. Some people, you could use music, or we learned color theory. We learned so much psychology. Be worried when you're watching a screen, you guys, because at least in my generation, I'm Gen X, we learned so much psychology of how to keep you in your seat, of how to get you to think about us. That's why when Jennifer Lynn Barnes was talking about her psychology of fiction, like I ate that up, and then I went and I read her teachers' theses and dissertations because I was so fascinated by it. So it's attention, all the ways to get people's attention. And then interest basically starts the storytelling bit of it, where you start to tell a story as part of your advertising, play on people's desires. We have intellectual desire, logical desire, but we mostly deal with emotional desires. And then we have to tell them to act, that call to action. That's what marketing boils down in a nutshell to me. Whether you're going on TikTok or you're going on Instagram or you're doing a Facebook ad or you're pitching and doing hand selling in person, it all boils down to those 4 things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I first heard that as well when I got into books and stuff and realized that I had to learn how to actually sell books. It wasn't just about writing them. But I guess, so the interesting thing, though, is to me, after so many years doing this now, is what stays the same? Because as you said, a lot does change. But for example, for me, I still have an email list that I've been growing since day one. And the email marketing side of it, I don't think has changed. As in, we can go wherever we go, but the goal is to be able to talk to somebody again. So, and you're using Substack, which I don't do. Do you think has the Substack kind of replaced email marketing, or do you still have email marketing at the basis of your marketing?
So the Substack is purely nonfiction, but I email my fiction list every week. And that's what I think is the thing that has stayed the same for me is the consistency. I consistently publish. I'm consistently telling stories. I'm consistently talking to my audience. I don't stop. I'm consistently promoting. I think it was Sky Warren came out with a 52-week promo strategy so that you can be in front of people every single week. It's the consistency. Just because we've seen, again, that things in this industry change. But there's a part of you that doesn't change. And that's your goals of I want to succeed. That is your number one goal. So you just have to change how you're going to succeed based upon what is moving and shaking in the industry. It's that consistency and just showing up and using AIDA and telling your story.
So I guess the point there is it doesn't matter which other way you choose. You have to choose something other. Like I think the email marketing has to happen. The consistency of production and publishing has to happen. But if someone chooses TikTok or if someone chooses Substack or YouTube, it doesn't really matter. You just have to pick something.
Yes, you have to pick something. Absolutely. Pick something, go with it.
Yeah. And a lot of people at the moment, as we record this, but this always happens, people are like, oh, Facebook ads have stopped working, Amazon ads have got more expensive, blah, blah, blah. How much is paid advertising a part of your marketing strategy?
It's very much a part of my marketing strategy. I am always looking for where are the readers. And if you tell me that I can come on Facebook where there's a lot of readers who read the books that I read and that all I have to do is pay some money to talk to them, I'm going to pay you. Because otherwise I have to, how else am I going to find them? It gets harder to find. I'm thankful for paid advertising. Thankful, yes, for social media, but a lot of times you're at the mercy of the algorithms that change all the time too. Like everything is going to change. So yes, I'm going to do the social media. Yes, I'm going to do the paid cost per click marketing. Yes, I'm going to do the paid newsletters. Yes, I'm going to purchase a table at a signing event because guess who's there? The readers. I think we need to reframe this. My dad always says it takes money to make money. So that's how I came into this business, knowing that I was going to have to spend. Now I have my thresholds and I know when I'm spending too much money and it's not worth it, that you decide for yourself. But I don't think that we can expect to come into a business and then just start making money for free.
Yeah, it's again, we come back to expectation. I feel like so many people are still stuck there. Like, why I just published my book on Amazon. Why aren't I making any money?
So did a few thousand other people publish their book the same day that you did, boo.
Yeah, the same minute as you did these days. But I think that's interesting. And I mean, like we said, you've been doing this over a decade now. Yeah. You will have seen people leave the industry as I have. So what do you think why are you still here, basically? Why are you still doing this? Why are you still upbeat when other people have left?
I'm unemployable. I am unemployable, Joanna.
Yeah, me too, to be fair.
But it goes back to my dad. It really goes back to my dad. And that lesson that I learned sitting in front of one of those huge speakers is this is how story works. And I feel like that's why I succeeded, because I understand how story works at a granular level. And that's what I try to tell people. That's what I try to do. Like I studied story structure. That's why I'm in air quotes fast writer. It's not because I'm a plotter or a pantser or a discovery writer. It's because I studied the art form that I so love. And that's what I think, that I never stop studying. I feel like every book that I write is me practicing a new lesson. And that's truly how I go into these books. What am I going to study today? Maybe I watched a television show and they did something with an unreliable narrator. And I'm like, bet, I want to try that. I'm going to figure out how the obligatory scenes of a trope with an unreliable narrator, and maybe if there's a hidden identity, and maybe it's a bully romance. I will never write bully romance, but I will break that down, looking for the structure, the way that I was taught to look in screenwriting, and then I will write that book. So that's why I think I'm still here. I think I'm still here because I understood structure, and I'm a consistent, permanent student of the structure of story.
And business as well, I guess.
Yeah. I would business. There's some luck there, but yes, I think you know what too. I think because I came from business, I came from corporate television. the National Geographics, the Discovery Channels, and Black Family Channel, that I understood, because the media, you have to market. So I always understood that I will not be a success unless I find the audience, I talk to them, I get my product in front of them. So that's where the business side came in for me, from understanding that.
Well, then you mentioned the art form that I love, which is a wonderful phrase. And let's come back to romance, because it feels like, I mean, in the indie community, since I've been an indie author, romance authors have always been the fastest movers and mostly the most successful in terms of business and sales. And so I feel like in the indie community, romance authors have a real position of prestige. Like, that's how I feel about romance authors. Like, I wish I could be that. It's just not my thing. But it's like, this is amazing. But it still feels like, you mentioned the Harlequins at the beginning in the pantry. And there's still some kind of stigma, it feels, in mainstream publishing. So what do you say to any authors who are like, I really love romance, but I'm scared of writing it because of what people might say, what their family might say, what their friends, or what people who are sort of judgy might say?
See, Joanna, this is when my feral Gen X is about to come out. I think that I think that if you're afraid, I don't think you should do it. If you don't believe in that, feel the fear and do it anyway. If you're afraid, don't do it. Do something else, because the romance readers will smell it on you. We are also feral creatures. And when you say stigma, I forget that so often, that outside of Romancelandia, that there is a stigma, because the party inside Romancelandia is so loud, is on and popping, and we're all cheering each other on, that we forget. Like, we don't come outside a lot, and when we do, we're like, oh, why are you guys out here? Come inside, it's great in here. So I feel like if you are not in that community, in the Romancelandia community, one, get yourself there. But even if after you come outside the doors and you're like, I'm still scared, don't do it, because the romance readers will smell it on you, and that's fine. You do not have to write romance. You can write something with a romantic element, and then that might do better for you, because romance is still its own genre, its own subgenre inside of other categories of genre fiction. Cool. Don't do it if you're scared.
Okay, so then if someone's like, oh, well, I want to come inside Romancelandia, what's funny is there'll be some people who've never heard that term before. Now, I have, but you don't go to romancelandia.com, right? So so how do people come inside Romancelandia? What are the best ways for a new writer to be part of the community? If you have a romance bookstore in your area, like I just did my first trip to New York, to the Rip Bodice in New York, and I walked in those doors and I was like, I'm home. That's what it feels like. Go to the romance section of your library. You will find a friend. Go to the romance section of your bookstore. Trust me, you will find a friend. I don't know what it is about the people in this world, in this magical land, but as soon as we see you next to us and you pick up a book, we have something to say. Girl, not that one. Girl, you need to read this one instead. Or do you know what happened in that book? You won't believe it. Do you want to be in a book club? That's the energy of this particular magical land. If that's not enough, or if you don't have a bookstore with a romance section in there, fine. Go and look up romance conferences. You will find them, because go look up Romance Writers of America. Even though they've struggled, there's still pockets of the groups and chapters that have broken off that want to talk to you, that will welcome you inside. All you have to do, I really feel like you have to, you know how when you get a new car and all of a sudden you see your car everywhere on the road? I really think if you speak romance into the world and you say you want a romance book sister, she will find you. No, I love that. And we should say there are also romance brothers. There are men writing romance. I guess that is a smaller group, I suppose.
I hear 20% is the number that is bandied about. I have no idea.
Yeah, and all kinds, as you say, I mean, Romancelandia has many sublands and subcategories. So there is something for everyone, isn't there? Yes. But I love that. Right, so we are out of time. So where can people find you and your books and your Kickstarter online?
So if you're an author, you'll want to go and read. I've got tons of content on my Substack. So go to ineswrites.substack.com and you'll see tons and tons and tons and tons of content. I am a faucet. If you want to read any of my books, you can go to ineswrites.com for that paranormal and that fantasy, all spicy. So, gird your loins. If you want to read something clean and wholesome that you can share with your mom or your auntie or your daughter, then you go to ShanaeJohnson.com for that content. And the Kickstarter, you should be able to find on Substack or on my site, but that should be at InesWrites.com/Kickstarter for the page turner planning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Ines. That was great.
Thank you so much.
So I hope you found the discussion with Ines inspiring and useful. I love her energy, and if you get a chance to listen to her in person, then definitely do it, as she is, just as you heard her, super encouraging. And it's also so interesting to listen to her because I am not in Romancelandia. I've been looking at it from the outside, and over the years I've sometimes been quite wistful about that. Those within the community have a lot of drama for sure, but also a lot of fun. And there are some of the top sellers and top business people in the author business there, and the top ranks of indie authors for sure. So if you love romance, head on over to Romancelandia, wherever you might find it. And of course, check out Ines's Kickstarter. And just a tip, if you back a Kickstarter, the creator will respond to your message much faster than if you just email them out the blue. So if you have questions for Ines, that is a good way to send them. So let me know what you think of today's episode. Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Send me pictures of where you're listening or your favourite cemetery or churchyard or cathedral. Next Monday, I'm talking about how to get more book reviews with Jo Walters. A really useful episode with loads of practical tips because let's face it, we always need more reviews. In the meantime, happy writing. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.